Well, hello, everyone. Good evening. It is April 29th, 2014, and we are here to play some Conflicted on Prepper Chicks After Dark on UCY.TV, thanks to the awesomeness of Jules. So, we are in short supply tonight, so we're going to have lots of conversation going on. But back with us tonight, because he is just that awesome, and he improvised, adapted, and overcame his computer problems tonight. Alika, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Lori. Computer problems are the big problem today, but I'm glad to be aboard. Like always, I'm with www.shtfready.com. We're prepping Survivalist website, and we help each other prep and learn from our mistakes and trials and errors. Just stop by.
Awesome. And I do believe JD is not joining us. He got called away to an emergency, unless I missed something, correct?
I see him on the Skype.
JD, are you with us? Yeah, I dialed him in. So, anyways, but our special guest tonight, and he's been with me on the show in the past, where we've talked about downgrade situations involving blizzards and whatnot from Long Island off the coast of New York. Welcome back, Mike, the backyard pioneer.
Thanks, Laura. It's great to be back with you.
Yeah, we get all kinds of accents going on here tonight.
Well, it's ironically enough, we're watching the lights flicker here again tonight. We're getting a little bit of that weather that hit the Midwest. So,
man, that was awful, wasn't it?
Yeah, I couldn't. Tornado Alley's got to be a crazy place to live.
Would not want to. I'm paranoid the way it is here in Indianapolis, so I can't imagine being any farther south or any farther west than I am. But our prayers and our hearts go out to all the people that were infected from Oklahoma down into Missouri. Arkansas got nailed. Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, all the way up the East Coast now. But you stay safe out there, okay?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're going to play some Conflicted. So what is Conflicted? It's a deck of 52 cards, and each card has a different scenario, different downgrade scenario on it. And it's great for your prepping group to sit around and discuss the scenarios, the questions that are on there, because it opens up conversations that you might not normally have with your group. So, conversations are always a good thing. Get inside somebody's head, figure out what they're going to do. I know the first time Eddie and I played it, we ended up yelling at each other. Because it's like, really? You're going to do that? Are you kidding me? You're out of my group. But I couldn't do that, because that means we'd have to divorce, and that's a whole nother mess. So, what did we say? We get rolling here. So I'm going to throw out the first question. And I just messed up my computer. Okay, back on track here. Saying a big hello to everybody in the chat room tonight. Please feel free to play along if you're in there. We have 8 Hawks, DCGO3. The Doc is in there tonight. Jimmy's in there tonight. Hecty, Jane Mom with the preface with us. Joe Friday. What is it? Kodachrome, Lady Pitbull of Mr. Bond. That's me. Princess with a gun is safely home now. She got to spend the weekend here in Indianapolis as we went to the NRA convention, which was awesome, but she's back home safely. Michelle, thanks for joining us. Salty old dog. He's been here for a while now. Alika's in there, Top Knot, Rads, and a bunch of Anons. So, Vagabond, SLC Mike. So, got a full house. So, let's get going here. So, first card I'm going to throw out. Downgrade situation. Washington, D.C. gets destroyed. We start bringing it back together, slowly but surely, but we need a new capital. Where do you think that should be, and why? Alika, what do you think?
I'm going to go all Jericho on your butt and say the great state of Texas will probably be the New Washington, D.C.
You'd move it south and west, huh?
Yes.
Why?
Well, it seems like that's the last republic, really, that understands personal freedom.
It is, but after a downgrade situation, wouldn't that mean we're all backed onto getting rid of a lot of that stuff?
Well, I mean, what makes Texas a good standalone republic, it pretty much has access to all the resources you could think of to rebuild itself right then and there. You got the oil, the fishing industry. There's some farming down there as well.
Who just moved? Was it Nissan? They took out of California, moved to Texas?
I didn't even know they were in California.
One of those big car companies, they told screw you to California and got them down to Texas. I thought that was awesome.
But yeah, a lot of the gun manufacturers are moving to Texas and other southern states because of the economy-friendly atmosphere. But yeah, it's just overall, I mean, I think maybe Texas's biggest problem would be securing enough water, but overall, who would not want to move there on a downgrade situation when you have almost every resource available to you?
Do you think that during or at the beginning of a downgrade situation, let's say we went to we were being attacked, do you think that they would get, I wouldn't say annihilated, but take the full brunt of anybody coming up out of the South, that they would be okay to have the capital moved there?
What are you talking, like man-made frontal assault or nature?
Yeah. No, man-made. Let's say Argentina and everybody decided they were going to come up from the South. We already know that Iran has bases and stuff down there. China possibly has bases down there. So they come over the border from the South to infiltrate us. How much damage do you think is going to get done down there?
Well, obviously, I wouldn't put like the state or the new Washington, D.C. and El Paso, or that's just an extension of Juarez, but maybe further east and a little bit more north where it's bordering
Dallas area?
Yeah, or where it's on the border of Louisiana, or
we can move it to South Fork. That's probably way before your time. Sorry, that was my funny for the night. Alika's like, what the hell is she talking about?
I just talking it up. You're probably drunk already.
I am not. Prince did leave me some moonshine, but I haven't gotten into it tonight. So, a long time ago, before you were probably born, Alika, there was a late night soap opera show on called Dallas where JD got shot. Or
J.R. Ewing.
Yeah, JD got shot. J.R. Ewing got shot and stuff, and it was based out of Dallas. And it was on Ranch. Yes, he Mike knows what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Showing your age there.
No, I remember that.
All right, so we got a Dallas. Mike, what do you think? Where would you move it to?
I like Tennessee.
Tennessee?
Tennessee. I'm going to go with, in a grid down situation, it's got all that infrastructure left over from the Tennessee Valley Authority. Easily defensible. It's behind the Appalachian Mountains. Pretty much the same reason why, Fort Knox is in Kentucky. So, yeah, I'm going to go with Tennessee. Great climate. 4 seasons, unlike, Texas. It's not too hot. I'm a northern guy, so Tennessee's about as far south as I could stand going. Yeah.
So any place particular, like Chattanooga area, or?
Me and my wife we visited my aunt. She's in Tennessee. She's down by Tullahoma. I really liked Chattanooga and Knoxville. Those would be my choices.
Interesting. See, I was thinking someplace like around Colorado. Maybe, yeah. Just because of being in the middle of, actually, Kansas is the middle of the United States. I figured that one out already. I don't know. Tennessee, huh? Lady Pitbull says the globalists plan to move it to Atlanta. And we have the UN crap in Chicago.
Hmm.
Doc in the chat room says Grindown probably will have a few locations in different regions for new capital depending on technology and communications. Which is a point there.
Yeah, that's true.
Do you think after a salty Utah? Yeah, go Utah. Do you think that we'll be able to bring what we know now as the United States back together after a downgrade?
I don't think so.
Why not?
I just think over the past probably say 30, 40 years, the regional differences have become too great. I could see it breaking up into at least 6 or 7 different regions. What does the Northeast have in common with Texas anymore, or Texas with California? I think it's almost like a sort of a balkanization.
So you think we're going to segregate it out?
Yeah, I don't know if it'll be, violent or apocalyptic, but I think if we're missing the communications that kind of keep us all drawn together now, I definitely think we'd go our separate ways.
Alika, what do you think?
I agree to some of it. I think we would go into a couple of factions, maybe in the first decade. I'm overshooting this, but Americans as a whole come together in a time of crisis. I mean, the last good example I can think of was right after 9/11. I mean, everybody banded together. People started talking to each other. I mean, it only lasted for maybe 6 months, and then we all went back to normal. But it seemed like 9/11 brought everybody back to the day where, back in the 50s and 60s, talking to your neighbor about current events and whatnot, and actually caring about what's going on in your neighborhood and reporting stuff that being that neighborhood watch like it used to be.
Yeah, because now you'll get paid for it by the Department of Homeland Security if you squeal on your neighbor. Yeah. Not sure I'm real happy about that one, but yeah, I remember after it happened, my father-in-law lives in Brooklyn, New York, and he was talking about how everybody came down out of the buildings, they brought out the barbecues, and this happened during the blackout too, a few years back.
04.
Yeah. And how, they came out and they were out on the sidewalks and they were actually talking to each other, and nobody was trying to harm anybody else. They were just trying to help each other. And, he said it was a beautiful thing to see. But that's when, we also had the hope that it was going to be on soon. Throw a punch in that and everybody realizes that you're screwed. Power's not coming back on.
Well, we saw it here just a couple of days after Sandy when the gas started running out, and then you started seeing the fights on the gas lines. Guys rolling around at the pumps. It was pretty interesting.
Alika, I blame Red Dye number 5 in Saturday morning cartoons. Now, just hold on a minute. Back when they actually had Saturday morning cartoons.
No, I'm not talking about classic Looney Tunes and Fraggle Rock. I'm talking about this
Power Rangers. Power Rangers.
I'm talking about the stupid stuff that's on right now.
Cow and Chicken?
I don't even know what you're talking about.
But yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. And I think, a lot of us in the prepping survival world think that, I know I've talked to a lot of people and they're like, I just wish this would happen. I just wish we'd get it over with and let's get on with it. Not realizing the destruction that's going to happen, and just as many good people are going to die as bad people. It's not like it's going to be like an ethnic cleansing where all of a sudden every non-prepper, person out there is going to instantly incinerate itself. We're going to lose a lot of people.
Yeah, I've met a couple of people that said they can't wait for the zombie apocalypse to happen or the destruction of the government. And I'm like, all right, I'm glad I talked to you, and I'm going to make sure never to go through your neighborhood when the time comes, because those are the ones that are going to be unstable and doing all types of crazy crap when the time does come. Yeah,
because it's like it's they're just waiting so they can do whatever they want to, whenever they feel. There's a movie on about that just came out. My daughter was telling me about. I don't remember what it's called, but you get so much time to do whatever you feel like doing with no consequences.
Oh, The Purge.
Yeah, that's it. It's going to kind of be like that to a degree. And a lot of people don't understand, law enforcement, they're going to be taking care of their own, in short supply, overwhelmed. So we now become the law. And that's a scary thought.
Yes, definitely.
All right. So, anybody have another card?
Let's see. Yeah, I got one.
Go ahead.
If the event you are preparing for becomes a reality, how will it change our society post-collapse, and what will the world look like?
Well, what do you guys think is going to happen? Mike, what do you think?
I guess the big one I always worry about is financial collapse. So
Yeah.
I think you're just looking at, once you get past that 6-month horizon where I think things would start to straighten themselves out a little bit, new systems would start to come into place. I definitely see a more agrarian society. That's what I prepare for. I think it's not so much having the piles of stuff, it's gathering that old time knowledge, knowing how to produce the food, how to preserve it. I think you'd turn the clocks back 100 years. I look at Long Island, where I live, how it's gotten built up over the past 20 to 30 years, and I think we'd have to get back to our roots. Long Island ducks, local economy, Long Island potatoes. I think you'd start to see those regional differences start to pop up again.
So you think that's with an economic collapse. What happens if it's a solar flare?
Oh, I guess that's the big one. Anytime you talk about the complete grid down, that's...
Because with an economic collapse, there's a very good chance the grid is going to stay up.
I think
people will have power and water and all of that to a degree.
Yeah, the grid collapse, I think, is setting the clocks back 200 years. It's still breaking down into that regional. I mean, imagine the lack of communication, no internet. That's that Mad Max scenario that keeps you up at night.
So do you think that's what's going to cause the chaos? So with an economic collapse, do you think there would be as much chaos? Well, I mean, that's a given. As there would be a total downgrid.
I don't think there'd be total downgrid is to the dark ages in my mind. I don't see how government, which is so dependent upon that instantaneous communication, keeps it together. I think if you look back in history, it just becomes localized warlords for a while until things eventually, hopefully, start to come back a little bit.
And the people that are going to roll that are the ones that make that switch fastest.
Yeah, pretty much. I don't ever look at my preps as being able to rely on them forever. They're there to get you through the bad time while you try to figure out what you're gonna do, and that's supplies get you through to where your skills are going to carry you all the way. Supplies carry you until your skills kick in, I think.
Yeah, good point. Alika, what do you think? What's got you up at night?
I've always been afraid of EMPs, solar, man-made, whatever. But just the idea of an EMP frying the electrical grid, we know how sensitive that grid system is.
More like the Carrington event kind of thing? Yeah,
and I mean, everything's relying heavily on power grid. It can barely support us as it is now. And throw a nice big solar monkey wrench into that thing, and we'll go back a decade to maybe even 30 years, because it'll take forever to get that thing back to where we used to be. And during that time, I mean, we all seen what Katrina did. It was only a few weeks of no services and whatnot, and they all turned into animals down there. So can you imagine 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 years with no services? that scares the crap out of me there.
I'm going to throw this one out for both of you because it's reality, and I like to talk about reality. We just sent troops to Poland, and it looks like things are not going to get any better over there. And, whether or not we're on or have already been engaged in World War III and don't know it, there's a real possibility that we could be at a full-fledged world war very shortly, coming to our shores. What do you think of that, Mr. Backyard Pioneer?
It's scary. What it's funny is I was talking to the kids in the neighborhood, and if you're born, if you were born anytime before, say, like 1985, this is just getting back to how your childhood was. I mean, I remember being in elementary school and the whole duck and cover thing and really going to bed scared of a nuclear war. I think it's scary times, but it seems like we're just getting back to our regularly scheduled conflict with Russia. I don't think the Soviet Union ever really went away. I think the Lebet just changed its spots for a little while.
Do you think we'll go to, though, the same kind of technology that was used in World War I or II? Will we use that same thing in World War III where we have to worry about rockets coming down? Or do you think it'll be more technology-based?
I think there was a good quote I read somewhere, and it had more to do with air power, but I think you don't own something until you have a 19-year-old with a gun on it. So I think eventually it comes down to just good old-fashioned brute military force. I think it could go to a conventional conflict. I think Russia and Putin in particular, I think they're very interested in protecting their warm water port. Everyone seems to forget that this is just history repeating itself. The charge of the Light Brigade came out of the first Crimean War, and that was Russia fighting for its warm water port. I think they've proven throughout the past 200 years that they will go to war to protect that warm water port. And I don't feel the current administration really acknowledges that.
Goodness, no. No, not at all. Let's just have a chat.
Yeah.
Probably on Facebook. Alik, what do you think?
It's definitely gonna be a technology-based war.
Do you think it'll be enough to send us into an economic whirlwind, though? And we'll have a double whammy?
Not really. I mean, as much as war is hell on both sides, it does help the economy. I mean, think about the last 10 years, 15 years. I mean, yeah, we're not at our prime back in the 80s, but you had those contractors that went overseas. We need bullets, Humvees and MRAPs and tanks. They all get built in this country. So, I mean, it will be a technology-based war, and they're gonna try and drag out the technology-based war as long as it can, but overall, it's gonna eventually end with
boots on the ground.
Boots on the ground, and the eventual bloodshed. I hope I don't see that day, but the way it's going, yeah, it's looking like it.
I've been reading through Chris the Angry American's books here recently, and they have a EMP event in his books. And in his book, it talks about, have either one of you read any of his books?
I read the first one.
I haven't had a chance yet.
Well, let's throw it out there, because he writes about this in his book. What kind of, what word am I looking for? The post office. What role will they play in a downgrade situation?
I think they're definitely part of a local economy. Just the infrastructure and the organization that's behind them. Hopefully someone can rise up and get that going. Being able to send a letter to the town over, I think, will become invaluable.
Well, they can barely sustain themselves as it is.
Well, that's because they send all their money to the government.
Yes.
But
I mean, look what a big role the Pony Express played in the West. You know, if you can't pick up that phone, being able to send a letter will be priceless. What would you pay for communication with a relative a town or two over?
yeah, what would you pay though? Because in his book, if you read it, they play an evil part in the rebuilding of our country. To the point they're collecting census and what kind of supplies you have, what kind of firearms you have, because they have the manpower in order to do that. That would worry me.
Mm. But then how about, remember that old, it was that book and Kevin Costner made a movie out of it, The Postman?
Yeah.
In that one, they were the good guys.
Yeah. Yeah, but your local postmaster knows more about you than probably anybody else because he reads your mail.
Good point.
Your UPS guy, your FedEx. Oh God, we've drafted our guys into our prepping group. I mean, we've had to, you know. I went on vacation and he's like, where's all the boxes and stuff? It's like, don't worry about it. Just drop the damn things and go away. But, okay. So, you know, a lot of us get reamed because, oh, well, they're prepping for the zombie apocalypse and something glamorous. And seriously, we're not. It's just real life. What's in the news kind of things. And, Mike, you bring up a good point. Knowledge has to come first because we've seen specifically over the last few days, I'm sure somebody's preps got taken from them in a matter of seconds.
Yeah.
So, you know, the people that have knowledge base can walk out away from the tornado destruction that happened and be able to rebuild a lot faster than those that relied upon their preps and sat on the couch and, you know, ordered stuff from TV.
Well, that's what I think is a little troubling. I think you've really seen the knowledge base in the United States erode. 30 years ago, and not that whole jack of all trades, master of none, but at least people we weren't all such specialists. You had a little bit of knowledge and you could do a lot of different stuff. I look back, my father and my grandfather built my grandfather's house when they moved out here from Brooklyn. And who does that anymore?
Yeah, you have to go to a specialized school now. They don't teach shop so much in actual high schools now. You have to go to a vocational school in order to learn.
A friend of mine, his son ran out of gas, and he was, a high school graduate. The kid was 18 years old, and he just did not know how to deal with it. And he had to call my buddy on his smartphone, and my buddy had to go deal with it. Where, 25 years ago when I was 18, that just didn't happen. I wouldn't have gotten dad out of bed in the middle of the night. That was my problem. If I was out of the house, I needed to deal with it. So I think we've just seen a knowledge, skill, and common sense erosion.
Yeah. I'll just walk into a restaurant and expect the kid that's ringing you up to give you change without using the calculator.
Yeah.
That's a nightmare in itself. And it's getting worse. I'm glad we removed our child from public school system because Common Core, if you haven't or don't know what it is, you guys out there listening, you really need to dig into it. So, okay, next question. Let's see what we got. So the society as we know it has collapsed. And we do not have the systems to support large populations any longer. They're not functioning. So we've gone through chaos and the struggles for resources, and whatnot. And I'm going to flip this a little bit. So your wives come to you, Alika and Mike, and say, I want to have a baby. What are you going to do?
I'm getting a little but I think, yeah, life goes on. Look how bad things have been during history, and the human race has always gone on. I definitely think I'd look at it as a challenge, but getting back to when kids were a blessing, when the family took care of each other as they got older. Who's going to take care of me when I get older if we have a grid down post-collapse scenario? You're going to have to rely on family again. You have to grow your own.
Grow your own children.
Pretty
it's like
much.
Plant in the garden.
Yeah.
Would you make sure that you had access to a midwife or a physician or something like that beforehand? Or do you have the ability to take care of that yourself?
No, I do not have the ability to take care of that myself. When we had the bad blizzard 2 years ago in February, the neighbor's wife it was right on her due date, and I was watching that snow pile up, and I was nervous. So definitely something I'd probably want a physician or a midwife lined up ahead of time.
The chat room is wigging out. It's like, are you kidding me? Are you out of your damn mind, woman? Salty, relax. Calm down. Alika, what do you think?
I think you're exactly like Salty. We definitely wouldn't try to have children if a physician or a midwife was not available, because I think learning how to prepare for a child and doing a childbirth like that wouldn't be on my medical agenda. I would be wanting to know how to set broken bones and plug gunshot wounds and tracheotomies and trying to stimulate the heart to beat again, versus I think those would be more important skills than trying to figure out how to bring a child into the world.
Oh, well, let me ask you this, and this one, Mike, you'll get it. You'll probably answer this one. So, anytime we have a downgrade situation now, a blizzard or something along that, the power goes out. 9 months later, you can ask any hospital out there. We have an uptick in babies being born. So we obviously can guess what the pastime, what people are doing. So we have a countrywide downgrade situation. The people at the beginning of the situation aren't going to realize, hey, this isn't going to be over anytime soon. They're thinking, oh, we got a week, then everything will be back to normal. So, they're screwing like rabbits out there. So, 9 months from the downgrade situation, we're going to see a hot mess going on. Mark my words. Am I wrong?
No, you're right. Going back, one of my father's favorite Vietnam War stories is talking about seeing a woman give birth in the rice paddy, chew through the umbilical cord, and go back to picking rice. So, people have been having babies for a long time. Sometimes I guess nature just takes its course.
Well, I gave birth to my youngest on a Friday, and on Monday I went back to work.
Yeah, my aunt actually, she was one of these women who had one contraction, and that was it. That
was me.
Yeah, my cousin was born on the living room floor at home. So.
Yeah, well, I told my guys, Eddie and the doctor, I said, when I tell you I'm going to go, I mean I'm going to go. The doctor never made it to the hospital. I never got checked in. It was wham bam, thank you, ma'am, and I was done and over with. Let's get on with life. Mm-hmm. Not everybody's like that, though.
No, my son particularly, when he was born, he was breech. My wife to have an emergency C-section. So, something like that would be really, really scary in a grid down scenario.
Oh, yeah. If you have not, Rachel, the Patriot nurse, she's coming to Indianapolis here beginning of June, I think, or May, to teach her medical 101 and 201 classes. And the 201 classes consist of you learn how to help a birth along in a downgrade situation. How many people have that knowledge?
Not too many.
No. And in 9 months from a downgrade, how many births are going to happen?
A lot.
Yeah.
Well, and I would think, that's part of my reasoning why I wouldn't want to have children during a downgrade situation is not the hardships of trying to feed and put food in another mouth, but the possibility of a breach or having to have to do a C-section, and you saved the baby, but then you have mom bleed out.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do that.
There's a lot of stuff there people need to think about. But it's going to happen. We need to just be ready for it. But, okay. So, are we done talking about giving birth? So you both kind of would, but you're kind of not. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. What else do we have here? Elika, do you have one? Or Mike, do you want to throw something out?
No, I don't have my deck out right now.
Okay.
Hey, I've got one. You and your group have been surviving well after the collapse, but other people weren't so lucky. From time to time, someone finds your group and begs for food. Today, however, a man is asking for a test to prove himself worthy to be part of your group. What would you tell him? Anyway.
I think in a post-collapse, strong, able-bodied backs are going to be hard to come by, and I think I'd let them I think we'd have to figure out what some sort of test would be. There's always going to be skills that are going to be in demand. I mean, I wouldn't want to be the guy who turned away the doctor or the engineer.
I totally missed the question. I'm too busy talking about circumcision in the chat room.
Oh.
You and your group have been surviving well after the collapse, but other people weren't so lucky. From time to time, someone finds your group and begs for food. Today, however, a man is asking for a test to prove himself worthy to be a part of your group. What would you tell him?
A test, huh? And we're not allowed to be evil, right?
Yeah, why not? We've been nice all for 40 minutes.
Well, I don't know. You'd have to. There's so many variables there. Who is this guy? Where is he from? Why does he want to be part of your group? What did you say, Mike?
I said exactly. You got to know who it is. I don't want to be the guy who turns away the doctor or the engineer.
Yeah.
But I was just being, I was in the mood that day.
So there'd have to be a vetting process.
No doubt.
Okay, so let's say he checks out, and you decide that you would consider him as part of your group. Let's say he is a physician. Would you take it a step farther and do a second vetting? And what would that consist of?
I don't know. I think you just have to watch closely. I don't know if you're going to take anyone on face value in a post-collapse situation right off the bat.
You wouldn't give him weapons?
No, I don't think I'd give him weapons.
What if he brought his own? Would you allow him to keep them, or would you do something with them?
Allow him to keep them. You have to have a little bit of trust, I guess. But if we're not taking people in and we're not making babies, where are we going from there? I think you're going to have to put together the strongest group you can, and we'd have to come up with some sort of vetting process. I think you're going to hit a point where it's grow or die. You don't want to be the people collecting anyone and someone out there is growing the next Mongol horde on you.
Yeah. Alika, what do you think?
It would be a collective on my group. We would I would say have to meet at the minimum once a week and discuss, whatever issues might be in our camp or compound and figure out, okay, we need a doctor. Let's be on the lookout for this guy, or we need a carpenter. Let's be on the lookout for him. And then, come up with tests or something to vet this guy or girl and prove their worth. And even if after one or two tests, they'll have to have a sponsor with them for at least a month to kind of feel them out and get a little closer to them and figure out what's their real story and go from there.
Okay, curveball. What happens if you vetted them through the first one, they get to the second one, and you've discovered something horrible and you don't want them in your group? And how would you remove them at that point? Because could you just let them walk away? Because they would bring other people back, especially if you pissed them off. They think they have a nice comfy home with you now, and you kicked their butts out, and now they're all pissed off, so...
Just look at the flowers?
Yeah, that's going to be the go-to saying. No, I mean, you can't...
I'm glad everybody understands what that means.
Yeah, you can't be the monsters of the area, and if they don't work out, start piling bodies like Pol Pot or something. You have to let them go and hope that your security measures are in place to counter retaliation on that.
So you would let them walk out?
If they lied and it wasn't a serious thing, oh, let me in. You guys need more houses or shelters built. I'm a carpenter. I can build something, and they build a half-assed house and it collapses and injures, children, whatever. All right, it's time for you to go. You lied, maybe rough them up a little bit because they hurt your children. But if they said, oh, I'm a doctor, I'm specialized in as a heart surgeon or a general practitioner, and somebody dies from a heart attack because they don't know how to do CPR or I don't know, I'm coming up with some probably not good examples here, but they die from something simple where that doctor could have done it, then I think it would have to deal with them more justly and have them look at the flowers for that.
Mike, what do you think?
I agree. I mean, I joked about just look at the flowers, but I live on an island, so I do worry about something like that because what comes around goes around. So I think you'd have to try to deal with people justly and fairly, and I'm not sure if just executing everyone who rubs you the wrong way will be that good of an idea.
So what would it take? What would it take you guys to kick someone out of your group?
Stealing. Definitely stealing. I think you'd hit it where, food and water would become so important that that's just not something you could tolerate.
That would be the least amount?
That'd probably be the least amount, dishonesty. How can if you're depending upon these people, if trust is so important, how could you tolerate, something like this, theft? I mean, anything else, I think above that, you're not even talking about kicking them out of the group. You are talking about having to administer some form of justice. You don't want harming anyone else in the group.
Alika, anything you would add?
No, it would be the current, crimes that we already do for capital punishment, and then, like Michael said, stealing would probably get added on there because food and water would be too valuable, and ammo would be way too valuable to steal and go slap them on the wrist and kick them out.
Yeah. I was reading Eight Hawks I in the chat room, and I would agree with him to a point. What if they connived behind your back and tried to instigate a coup against you or your group and try and get certain people that they know have supplies to take over your group?
You go all John Steinbeck and Grapes of Wrath and take care of this.
What if it was the doctor was a male and he started to put the moves on you? Would you kick him out of the group for that?
No, I think you just have to say, dude, I don't roll that way.
Yeah.
But what if he, because they live among us. What if he's adamant? You know?
Yeah, what if he's like some 6'5", 250-pound bear that just wants to always loving?
Hey, Bubba.
I don't know. I mean, I've spent 18 years now as the Fire Island lineman, so it's...
It's you! It's really you! I'll let you stay the hell away from him.
No thanks, dude. This has always worked for me.
Well, it goes back to, sex is probably going to get you a lot in a damn good situation. Mike, you need to stop giggling.
Sorry.
It's one way to get free healthcare.
I don't know if that would... I don't know. I'm going to leave that one alone because there's so many things going through my head right now that don't need to come out of my mouth.
Hands-free prostate exams.
Exactly. Either that or you're going to be constipated for a while. Anyhow, I mean, what are you guys willing to go to in order to get what you need? Would sex be that option if it came down to it?
It would be the very, 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 very bottom option for me.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that.
And I think taking a pipe to somebody's head would definitely outweigh sex first. Or kneecap. Yeah, I like kneecaps.
Okay, I won't go there. The chat room's already... There we go again. Sorry. Let's see here. All right, so we had a downgrade situation. And you are commander-in-chief, somebody up in the higher rankings of the government. So the event's already taken place. Chaos has already taken over. If you were in charge of the country, how would you go about restoring order, and what steps would you take? And don't bring up sex. Everybody! Free condoms! Hey, and just so everybody in the chat room understands, I did not bring up prison sex tonight, so you're all off the hook.
I don't think I would go about putting it all back together. I think that'd be too much to bite off. I think you'd have to start small. Get the localized area under control. I don't think you can rule a continent like we do now without the modern infrastructure that we get from the grid. It was hard enough 100 years ago when you only had trains and the telegraph. I pick an area, a region with good cropland, easily defensible, and start there.
So Texas is pretty much under control, but you were going to Tennessee, sorry.
I was going to Tennessee. Get me up there on the cup.
How big of a piece of territory, if you ran the country with the abilities that it has now, we have a down grid, how much of the country could you take over from Tennessee?
You could probably run up through, like the Cumberland Valley they have back into Virginia, all good farmland, good hunting, good fishing, I think from there,
And 20 million other people from the East Coast.
Sure, but I mean, in a going back to that grid down, EMP, the whole 1 second after, how many people are going to be left 6 months later?
True, very true.
I mean, you can wait them out one good winter, and I'm sure you could go get your choice of whoever's the toughest, meanest survivor to crawl out of New York City by then.
So you could pretty much, do you think you could take pretty much, the eastern seaboard? Or leave off parts of Maine and New Hampshire and Vermont and
Florida. No need for Florida.
I tell you, no, nothing. He just threw Florida out to the wind. And they're gone. Okay, so Florida's gone. New England's gone. Anybody else you want to scrape off the East Coast?
I figure how many people are going to be hanging out in Florida with no air conditioner,
word. That's where everybody's going to go. I sat there one day and got a map and figured out, okay, from Chicago, how far could they get on a tank of gas? From here, they could get pretty far down in there.
That whole tank of gas thing. We drove to Florida, ironically enough, a couple weeks ago, and we sat on I-95 like you would not believe. And that was just, everyone, I think, had cabin fever and decided to get out of the Northeast for the week. It took us, it was 17 hours to not Atlanta, where did we go? Savannah. It was unbelievable.
Yeah,
I couldn't imagine.
Spring break.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine having to go anywhere in a major disaster.
Oh, goodness, no. You're not getting out of there, that's for sure. When we were in Florida a couple weeks ago, we hit Macon and drove 10 miles an hour past Atlanta.
Okay. When we drive down, we stop for the night in Savannah. That's my goal. I get on the road and try to get there because we're going all the way down to Fort Myers. So, but it was 95 was a parking lot, and I passed by one last exit and I said, I'll get gas at the next exit. And we got caught behind an accident. And there I am, me, my wife, and my son just watching the gas gauge go down.
Yeah.
And down and
That's
down.
why I keep a CB in my truck. I can get on there with those truckers and they can tell me how to get the hell out of there. Mm-hmm. Well, I also have paper maps. I don't just use the TomTom.
Yes. My wife mocks me all the time when I throw my good old fashioned atlas and we go.
Yep. I'm stopping at the rest stops. First rest stop inside the state line, buddy. You can get all kinds of maps.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, Lika, what do you think? You become commander-in-chief after a downgrade situation. You're in Texas, right? How much of the country can you control?
Just off the top of my head,
you still have control of the armed forces. So how could you get the country back together again and all of that?
I would go back to the basics, divide the country into probably 1, 2, 3, 4, anywhere from 6 to 8 regions, and have the representatives from those regions, converge in my capital, once a month, once every other month or something to, get, commerce, going, figure out, what is lacking in one state that another state might be able to use and, create a infrastructure that way until we can get back to the norm.
So would you put people over control of different areas that would be responsible to answer to you?
Yeah, because to me, that would make the most sense because one person, it's just not possible in a downgrade situation. And
give the people what they want. So food and medicine.
Yeah.
And that'll calm everybody down?
It definitely would for me. But and definitely install, term limits on these jokers that are answering me 2, 3 years.
Okay, well then would you give yourself a term limit?
Oh yeah, I would give myself a term limit. Probably I want to do, if I was president, commander in chief, in a downgrade situation, I might extend that for maybe 2 more years once it gets settled. But once there's finally a representative structure in place, all the representatives from those regions and the people that I rule in Texas they could vote me out or keep me in and keep me in for 2 terms, and then they got to hire somebody else.
Okay, so if you needed to get some people that didn't have some food, and the other people had medicine, and back and forth, would you just take it from the one people and give it to the other, or how would you work that out? Let's say, I don't know, Idaho has all the potatoes and they can feed the people in Ohio, but Ohio has all the medical people. How would you get that evened out? Just move it? Decide what they need?
No, that would be between the representatives of each state. Yeah, it would have to go back to the old ways. If you get a good commerce system going, okay, I need potatoes, but I don't have the medical personnel that you need right now. We'll have to make arrangements 3-4 months down the line, do an IOU, or pay up front through another means. It's just once you get that trade going, there really is and that structure starts building up. There's really nothing there to stop you.
What about the people that think that they are owed it?
Well, then that's where my military would come in and start setting people straight. Well, with the approval of the said representatives from each region.
So let the people decide.
Yeah, it would all go back to the original basics. It would be all people. I would just be the overseer. And if they didn't like me,
vote you out.
Tell me to kick rocks. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that would make for an interesting time, to say the least, considering the division in this country already and how to get it collectively back together and functioning properly. But we are down to the last minute. So really fast, reintroduce yourselves, your websites where people can find you at. Mike, why don't you go first?
Sure. My name's Mike. You can find me at the backyardpioneer.com, where we do a lot of common sense prepping and homesteading.